We're alive.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, everybody, every friend, colleague, dear brother and sisters.
Alaikum salam.
This is the third week we are keeping with this nice topic. And of course, this is an, let's say, uh, eternal voyage for us to search for meaning from any holy source, especially Quran. So we are searching for the meaning, searching for the truth, which is timeless itself. So again, we have Colin Hojam, Professor Colin Turner from Durham, England. We have dear respected brother Ömer Faruk Ramazan. You remember he's the excellent moderator to me from Bloomfield, Connecticut, and I'm the guest moderator again. So as I mentioned, we're keeping with the same topic, which is part of the 30th word by Said Nursi. And this 30th word, once again, is just kind of a droplet from the ocean of the Quran's verse, one single verse, which is this one that you see. And remember, it was about the trust given to humankind, for which mountains, earth, heavens were scared to undertake, from Suratul Ahzab, verse 72. So we still search for the meaning, particular meanings from this verse. So this is where we stopped. As we do traditionally, I just keep on reading. Let's read together, and we will go then meaning chunk by chunk later. Come back. Question. Why is knowledge of the attributes and names of God Almighty, Allah, connected to the I? The answer. Since an absolute and all-encompassing thing has no limits or ends, neither may a shape be given to it, nor may a form be conferred on it, nor may it be determined. What its quiddity is may not be comprehended. For example, an endless light without darkness may not be known or pursued. But if a line of real or imaginary darkness is drawn, then it becomes known. Thus, since God Almighty's attributes like knowledge and power, and names like all-wise and all-compassionate are all-encompassing, limitless, and without like they may not be determined, and what they are may not be known or pursued. Therefore, since they do not have limits or an actual end, it is necessary to draw a hypothetical and imaginary limit. The I does this. It imagines in itself a fictitious dominicality or lordship, ownership, power, and knowledge. It draws a line. By doing this, it places an imaginary limit on the all-encompassing attributes, saying, up to here, mine, after that, his. It makes a division. With the tiny units of measurement in itself, it slowly understands the true nature of the attributes. For example, with its imagined lordship over what it owns, the I may understand the dominicality of its creator over contingent creation. And with this apparent ownership, it may understand the true ownership of its creator, saying, like I am the owner of this house, so too is the creator the owner of the universe. And with its partial knowledge, it may understand his knowledge. And with its small amount of occult art, it may understand the originative art of the glorious maker. For example, the I says, as I made this house and arranged it, so someone must have made the universe and arranged it, and so on. Thousands of mysterious states, attributes, and perceptions which make known and show to a degree all the divine attributes and functions are contained with the I. That is to say, the eye is mirror-like and like a unit of measurement and tool for discovery, it has an indicative meaning, having no meaning in itself. It shows the meaning of others. It's a conscious strand from the thick rope of the human being, a fine thread from the raiment of the essence of humanity. It's a leaf from the book of the character of mankind, and it has two faces. The first of these faces looks towards good and existence. With this face, it is only capable of receiving favor. It accepts what is given, itself it cannot create. This face is not active, it does not have the ability to create. Its other face looks towards evil and goes to non-existence. That face is active, it has the power to act. Furthermore, the real nature of the eye is indicative. It shows the meaning of things other than itself. Its dominicality is imaginary. Its existence is so weak and insubstantial that in itself it cannot bear or support anything at all. Rather, it's a sort of scale or measure like the thermometer or barometer that indicates the degrees and amounts of things. It is a measure that makes known the absolute, all-encompassing and limitless attributes of the necessary being. Thus, he who knows his own self in this way and realizes and acts according to it is included in the good news of truly he succeeds who purifies it. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. He truly carries out the trust, and through the telescope of his eye, he sees what the universe is and what duties it is performing. When he obtains information about the universe, he sees that his eye confirms it. This knowledge will remain as light and wisdom for him, and will not be transformed into darkness and futility. Yeah, quite long, but the meaning is a whole. So let's start from the beginning. I want to just start with Colin Hocam. So can you just start in general, maybe overall meanings of all we read, and maybe we can start with this question then particularly. Why is the knowledge of attributes and names of Allah connected to the eye?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There's a lot to unpack here, and I think we should do it quite cautiously. At the beginning of this passage, Ustad is talking of absoluteness, and he's ultimately referring to God, of course, to the ground and the source of all being, which of course is absolute and all-embracing, but it helps when trying to understand this, as it always helps, to use an analogy. How I was taught to understand it and how I find it helpful to consider in my own mind is to try to imagine what the universe would be like if everything in existence was colored white. Everything. It's more difficult using a color that we know, of course, but our options on that score are limited, so we'll have to go along with it. Imagine that every single thing is white, the same shade of brilliant white, if you wish. Now, if everything in creation were white, the color white would actually be meaningless. You wouldn't be able to talk about it as white, because white is meaningful only if there are other colors with which to distinguish it. But if everything were white, we wouldn't actually be able to know what white is. And so we wouldn't be able to recognize it. It would be impossible to determine, as Ustad says, it would be impossible to know what it is or even to describe it. Now, Ustad Nursi talks about endless light, an endless light without darkness, which wouldn't be perceived as light. Well, light or white, they're practically the same in this example. So the only way of being able to see that everything is white would be if we were to draw a line across something in a different color. That would be the only way that we would be able to understand that everything is white. So, for example, if we were to draw a black line across one of the walls in the room, the fact that all of the walls and the floor and the ceiling and all the furniture, the fact that everything was colored white would immediately become obvious. Because white is known not by what it is, but by what it isn't. And so as soon as we draw a black line across one of the walls, then a distinction between the black and white would be drawn, and immediately white would become visible to us. So let's go back from that analogy now and see what he's really talking about. He's talking about the creator. The creator is absolute. That means his attributes of perfection are absolute and without end, without limit, without bounds. And so in order to know them, in order to know him, we have to draw an imaginary line of black across the all-encompassing white of divine absoluteness. And the thing which draws this imaginary line is Anna, the human eye. Anna, which is a crucial component of the nafs, of the human soul. Drawing this line enables us to be able to compare between the black and the white in order to understand the white, which is the same way as saying that we are able to compare between the human and the divine, between the human eye and God. Now, as Ustad says, this line that we draw doesn't need to actually be real. An imaginary line will do, because all that line is an imaginary boundary. It doesn't actually have to exist. And in fact, the eye doesn't exist as such. It has no concrete, external, extra-mental existence. So I think I may stop there for a second, and then for us just to take that in, and you can ask our other interlocutor what he thinks.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, we need to take this in. Yeah, very nice. It needs digestion, and I think it's a very well established, and it's a sound reasoning. Ömer Faruk, do you want to say on this?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah, this is a beautiful topic. And as Colin Hojam said, this, and I want to, start with the question actually, it says, why is the knowledge of the attributes and names of God Almighty connected to the eye? And Colin Hojam, he gave an example from, the color white, this endless color white. And if we even imagine a place, full of white, but there's nothing, it's just white. And if you were in that place, right, you wouldn't know what exists, and you wouldn't know, as Colin Hojam said, you wouldn't know the color white. But if you have a yellow something, an object, then you would understand the difference. And here, and our purpose here in this world, to know Allah Almighty, infinite, with His essence and with His attributes and names. He is infinite, and in Surah Al-Zariyat, Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Right? This is jinn and insan. We were created to know Allah. And now we said that if something is eternal, we cannot know it, right? We cannot recognize it. And to know Allah, to know the infinite, something infinite, we need something finite, right? And we cannot know Allah by His essence, right? With His person, we cannot know His person, but we can know His attributes and names. And here Ustad gives the attributes and names as if His knowledge and power, right? His ilm and qudra, His knowledge and power from His attributes. And these are infinite. No one can know what is infinite, right? No one can recognize. But now we have Ana, and with Ana we possess, and with our beings, like we have ilm and power, and this has existence, like we have power and knowledge. But Allah gave us something like Ana, something that the angels do not have. And with our partial knowledge and power, we know Allah's infinite knowledge and power. And I believe this is very, very important for us. This is not a light topic, because as in Surah, Allah Ta'ala says, "Inna aradna al-amanata ala as-samawati wal-ard wal-jibal." Right? Allah offered this Ana to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, these huge beings. and they did not accept it. So this shows the importance of it. It was so big duty that they shrank. They didn't accept this, and we should, I believe, as every Muslim, and us, it's very important to understand this, inshallah. And in this hour, inshallah, I pray that we will unpack many other things. So
yeah, at this point, you reminded me the purpose of creating humankind. So maybe even the purpose of creation of humankind is hidden under Ene, because as you say, Melaik angels don't have it. And obviously other creatures, especially the ones which doesn't have consciousness, don't have Ene, I. So solving the puzzle riddle of Ene also gives us a way to the general philosophical question of why am I created at all? So I think also we are searching answer for this question, absolute question also. Colin Hocam, do you want to keep on?
I just wanted to say something about the discourse itself, the text itself, if that's okay, just very, very quickly.
Of course.
Ustad Nursi's explanation of the human eye, I think, is one of the most brilliant that I've ever come across, personally, just on account of its coherence and its cohesiveness. References to Ana, to Anania, are really very far and few between in our theological tradition. You don't see it very often discussed. And outside of the Sufi masters and the great mystics, there's nothing on this scale, or this degree of detail. The nafs al-amara is discussed at length in our tradition. Imam Ghazali's Ihya is a good example of a work in which nafs and its sicknesses are explained and unpacked in detail. But it's, again, the Sufi thinkers which hold the reins of this subject for the most part. Now, Ustad Nursi is not a Sufi. He's, of course, a mainstream Sunni theologian. He's not a representative of the Sufi tradition. And from that perspective, I think he's out there on his own on this subject. I just wanted to say how momentous the treatise is and how important it is for our tradition, our theological tradition.
Thank you for this explanation. So we are going on with a topic which is unique in a way. There is a question, by the way. Colin Hocam, it's because of you said, the question, let me read it quickly. What is the harm in existence of Ene? Because it still does not change the meaning that it was created by Allah. Colin Turner said that it doesn't have to exist. I'm asking because of that.
This will be quite a lengthy explanation if I'm to give an answer. The black line that we draw across the white of divine absoluteness comes in the form of Ana, right? And this begins with an illusion, a fiction, but it's a necessary fiction. We are created with the ability to understand and to experience and to internalize certain perfections, right? And these perfections, we find them in ourselves, and which, as we grow up, we develop them and we add to them incrementally as we grow. We experience these perfections as a mixture of character traits, abilities, potentialities, which make up this base material, the substrate of our humanness, our assets, or capital, if you wish. So we are born with vision, with hearing, with life, of course, and a whole range of other assets, knowledge, wisdom, a sense of order and justice. In fact, all of the attributes, names, titles, and designations which make up the Asmaul Husna, the beautiful names, we find traces of those inside our own being. We imagine that these names reside in our very being, and we grow up with a sense of ownership over our human capital. And our parents, our teachers, and society at large, all of them inculcate in us a feeling of ownership over these human capitals, these human assets. And so, as Ustad says, this I, this fictitious I, imagines, firstly, that it has substantial existence, and secondly, that it has real ownership, real knowledge, and real power. And as we grow, the sense of ownership over these attributes is consolidated, as I said, by our parents, our teachers, our friends, our peers. And so then human life becomes a kind of quest for survival, a quest to hold on to life and to add to our human capital, to add to it, to augment it, to make it grow, to perfect it. No one feels that they have absolute or infinite knowledge, but everyone believes that he or she has a certain amount of knowledge, knowledge which can be added to, knowledge which can be increased, knowledge which can be perfected. Power is another example, and all of the other divine names follow suit. So what happens because of this is that we are able to make comparisons, and we use our own attributes as a platform from which to rationalize and interpret the universe. And so when it comes to our metaphysical considerations, we are able to use our own attributes in order to make certain conclusions about God's attributes. So the very fact that we possess certain characteristics, certain perfections, certain attributes, allows us to make a comparison. I'll give you an example. I can extrapolate from the fact that I have power to conclude that whoever has created the universe must have power. Similarly, I can look at my own knowledge and I can conclude that whoever creates the universe must also have knowledge, a lot of knowledge, much greater knowledge than I have. I look at my own sense of order, my own sense of justice, and I conclude that whoever designed the universe must also have a sense of order and justice. Now, what's the point of this? In actual fact, what I'm saying is I have this much power, but God has that much power. I have this much vision, but God has that much vision. My imaginary Anna allows me to draw imaginary black lines across the absoluteness of the divine attributes. Anna doesn't actually exist. Anna is just a tool to allow us to make this comparison. And we make this comparison from a position of imaginary ownership. This is the function of Anna, is to allow us to own our own attributes temporarily in order to use them as tools of measurement. That's all it is. So Anna is a tool of measurement, but as we'll see as we go through the text, it's very dangerous theoretically, because if we don't use it as a tool of measurement to measure the attributes of God, we will hold on to those attributes and we will imagine that they are really ours. But we can get to that issue later. I think the answer to the question is that Anna it doesn't have to be real, just like other units of measurement are not real. They don't have a real existence, external existence. If you want to buy, and my old example is a kilo. If you want to buy a kilo of potatoes, a kilo doesn't really exist. If you go into your grocer and say, "Can I have a kilo?" he will say, "Well, a kilo of what?" So the tool of measurement, the unit of measurement, doesn't actually have to have an external existence. So when the questioner said, "What is the harm in the existence of Anna?" and it doesn't exist. How can it be harmful? Well, it can be harmful for that very reason. Because if we don't use it as a tool of measurement, in order to gauge the attributes of God, then we will treat our own attributes as though they are truly ours, and that is disastrous.
And maybe we can perceive all the history. Maybe we'll come to this point later also. All the history, let's say the wars, the criminal stuff. We can say that this is the short history of Ene, or
Absolutely,
collective
absolutely.
Ene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever we say Ene exists, or whenever I perceive that my Ene really exists, as the ontological building of Said Nursi allows us to conclude that as we build on Ene and it becomes collective Ene, then it can just swallow all the all the humankind, anything. It's like, all the bad people or harmful people, harmful rulers, reign of powers. So these all are attribute to the fictitious existence of Ene, trying to make it more existing. So as you try to make it more existent, all the problems, all the all the wars and crimes pop up in the world.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a very thin line between using the attributes that we experience in ourselves as tools of measurement and actually using them as components of our own makeup and truly belonging to us. It's very easy to have a sense of ownership because society tells us, society says, oh, how clever you are, go to university, increase your knowledge. Society says how beautiful you are, become a film star, and your beauty will draw you lots of admirers and you'll become very wealthy. Society is telling us all the time that we should be perfecting ourselves. This is the whole project of the Enlightenment, originally to become more like God. But the point is not to become more like God. The point is to become more like an abd. And that is by admitting that these attributes are not mine. These are God's attributes that he's lent to me, so that, in order for me to reflect his attributes and to be a conscious mirror. But what we do, we cut off the connection between our attributes and God, and we say, these are my attributes. I am your Rab, I am your Lord. These attributes are mine. This is toxic and it's dangerous. As you said, that history, I think what you said is very, very apt. History is the story of Anna, basically.
Yeah, and in the following lines, we will have this discussion. I want to ask you, if today possible. I think Said Nursi cleverly gives a notion for us to build this, like history of Ene. I think he has very nice short sentences attributing to this point. Ömer Faruk, do you want to say on this?
Yeah, again, thank you, Najam, for his comments and about harm. And we can again, I'm going to recite the verse. We did indeed offer the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to undertake it, being afraid thereof, right? And if there was no harm, they wouldn't be afraid, So even the heavens got afraid from that. So that should have harm at the end, if it is misused. And it's something hypothetical, and it doesn't have existence. So we cannot say that God created it just like he created, the sun and the moon, but it's hypothetical, a unit of measurement. And I also see, from the last week, I want to read one sentence from that as well. The Ene is like the key to a treasure, right? And Ustad says sometimes a key can be more valuable than the treasure itself and can be more valuable. And the universe, Allah, we will know Allah through his creation, through the universe. And to know the creation, Ene, our ego, our I-ness is like the key to get to know the creation. And if I say that, as Colin Hojam said, for example, I am beautiful, I am successful, this is my money, this is my property, I am eating, I'm drinking, and I'm surviving, I'm, taking care of my health. If I do that, this is so harmful, because if I do that, at the end, I will look at the nature and I'll say, those trees, they're taking care of themselves, and those animals, they are surviving by themselves, and everyone is, taking care of themselves. So the key to a treasure of knowing Allah will be closed for me. So this is the danger, this is so valuable a key to open the treasures in the, in the heavens. So the misusing it is that harmful and responsible. We are responsible for it, right? If we misuse that, a key that's as valuable as the universe, and misusing it, and even Luqman alayhi salam, he says to his son, inna shirka la zulmun azim, and that's a kind of shirk. And this is the beginning of the shirk. So we should be, be afraid from that. Not, it's not like other sins that we commit. It's the biggest sin, right? Inna shirka la zulmun azim. It's the biggest sin that we can ever commit, and we should be afraid of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The harm on self, and also we discussed the harm on society. So it's ultimate harmful when we pursue existence of it. With connection, maybe we can go over these wordings. I may ask a question on this, especially from this line. And with its apparent ownership, it may understand the true ownership its creator. So is this a guideline for us how to position Ene? So if I position Ene in a way to pursue ownership, to understand the ownership of the creator, is this the right position that I'm pushed forward?
I'm not sure. I feel that coming from you, maybe this is a loaded question. Is it?
Because this is, and the reason I'm asking, we know Said Nursi is crafting here in a way to get the message. And for this reason, he doesn't really say that Ene exists. Neither he says Ene doesn't exist. So he doesn't, purposefully say this. So in a way, Ene is kind of, what do you say? It's like I think I gave this example before, like this in statistics. It's kind of a random variable which sometimes exists and sometimes it doesn't exist. Also in relation to quantum physics, Anyhow, so at this point, I see here a guideline to position Ene. So is it true, to have a position like, just as you mentioned, have this Ene as a tool to mention that Allah's ownership is that much. And at this point, I'm making use of my fictitious ownership. And when I get the message, maybe I get rid of it. If I don't get rid of it, then it's going to be mixture. Then I will say that Allah really gave me this ownership and I really owned it. Like, Kabil saying that I gained this with my knowledge, with my, this is given to me because it was because of my knowledge. This is the reason I'm asking.
I think you've just answered your own question, really. To a certain extent. It's what we do, even without verbalizing it, What we do is we make comparisons. That's how we're created. And we find certain things in us and we start to think, oh, well, this universe is so vast, it must take power, because we know that, building a house takes power, or running a house takes, a certain amount of astuteness and talent and ability. So whoever runs the creation must have these, but obviously on a much vaster scale. We don't necessarily verbalize these or vocalize them, but I don't want to say naturally, and you know why I don't want to say naturally, but fetratan, we have these, we feel or we experience these attributes, or maybe the reflections of these attributes. There are indications of these attributes in us. So these are questions we can ask without even verbalizing them. So, whoever creates the universe must have knowledge, because, when I write something or I do something, I do it with knowledge. So therefore, if there is a creator, the creator must be extremely knowledgeable. So these are things that we do. We make these comparisons automatically, in a sense, because we have samples of the names in us, or reflections of samples. It's interesting. I want to ask you a question, and Omar as well. There is a verse in Quran, of course, which says that Allah taught us the names. I think it's Allama Adama al-Asma kullaha, something along those lines.
Right.
This Allama it's a second form verb in Arabic. It can also mean to indicate or to point out. And I'm wondering whether or not we can understand the verse in the sense of Allah indicates to us says, look, you've got these names, and those names are there for a purpose. Use them in the right way. And he indicates to us that you have knowledge, you have order, you have compassion, you have wisdom, all of these things. But they're not yours. If you use them in the right way, I'll let you keep them, ultimately, eventually. But if you use them, if you misuse them, I will take them from you and I won't give them back. So I'm wondering whether or not we can understand allama in that sense as, indication, which I suppose is teaching anyway.
Right.
I think it just adds a dimension to it that that may be, illustrative.
Yeah, I agree. Ömer Faruk, do you want to add on this?
Actually, yeah. When I was reading this before this, when I was thinking about the same verse as you said, even though, and in a verse, in an ayah, in a word in the Quran, Allah has, infinite meanings. Even though if it's in line with, the meanings that humans and the scholars derive from the verse is what is intended by Allah as well. And as you said, when Allah, taught the names to Adam alayhi salam, it's not like, this is tree, this is, this is a bird, the names of the birds. It's not that simple. And as you said, it's that we can extend it to the names of Allah that we can learn, but angels cannot, right? So it should be definitely something like that. I was thinking about the same thing. Something that angels cannot know. The names that we learn through our I-ness, that's something that angels cannot learn. And this is like a, as like a treasure, a key to a treasure. The I-ness we have.
And Colin hocam, I like the way you say alleme, like it has an indicative meaning. I agree also on this point, and I think it is very important. So it's kind of, the names are taught on us, but this is indicative. Like, we cannot say that I own this name, or I am acting, as if I really, how to say, it's my essence. It's not my essence. It's kind of, with this verse, alleme Adem esma-i külleha, so just taught Adam all the names. It's kind of, I learn, but maybe the learn itself is very key, right? Learn means I just possess it for a short time, or it just for me to get the message of the creation, or just to deepen in understanding of my nature, my condition, which is ultimately being powerless and ultimately being in a state of not possessing anything at all. When I come to this state, then, as it says here, it's gonna be mirror-like, and maybe I can reflect the compassion from Allah's name, all compassionate, I can reflect it much better. Or let's say I'm doing science, I'm doing research. As far as I understand that, this knowledge is limitless, and I'm kind of, very far away obtaining or retaining it, then I'm closer to understanding the Allah all-knowing name. So, but whenever I tend to say that I learned it, I'm the one, I'm the guy, I'm the, I'm the ultimate knower of this fields, then, things turn out to be different. Even it closes the doors of the universe to understand the creator's message and my position in the universe also.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. We're given the names temporarily in order to make good use of them and to submit them back to God. And then God will, inshallah, give them back to us. He says, he promises, he gives us these names for us to use properly. And then at the end, he will give them back to us. And this is reflected in the Quran, in so many of the Prophet's stories. The Prophet Abraham, والسلام, he was told to sacrifice his son. And how I understand that is giving up his attachments, and we are attached to the names. We are attached, so attached to the names because we think they're ours, but we have to reflect them as God's names, and we have to admit to God that these are your names. These are not my names. You have to give them up, but you can have them back. The same with the mother of Musa alayhi salam. She had to put him in the stream and let him go. She had to give up her attachment to him, but with the promise that he would come back to her one day. And the same with Yaqub alayhi salam. He had to witness Yusuf alayhi salam being thrown in the well and leaving and going. In other words, all of this is sort of saying you have to give up your attachments. You cannot own these things. You cannot exercise sovereignty over these things. Give them to Allah, but He will give them back to you. And we see that Musa comes back to his mother. We see that Yusuf comes back to Yaqub. And we see that Abraham is allowed to keep Ismail.
Yeah, mashallah, it's beautiful. I loved it. This attachment versus getting away with anything. But when we just detach ourselves, ultimately everything happens in the right way.
Yeah, I think so. It's we have to give them back to Allah, which is the essence of taslimiyah. The essence of submission is to give them back by. I mean, you can't physically give them back, but you can give them back in a sense by reflecting them as they should be reflected, in the name of Allah. Acting Bismillah, portraying the names for His sake, and how He asks us to reflect the names. And then at the end, He promises, I'll give you back and more. He gives back with interest. But if we use those names selfishly, and we utilize them for self-aggrandizement and self-worship, then at the end, Allah will take those names from us, and we won't get anything back in return. And this is hell. Literally.
Right. You brought me to the sentence in one of Said Nursi's writings. There's this chain reaction in which belief, iman, brings tawhid, just believing in oneness. Then tawhid brings taslim, right? Then taslim brings tawakkul. I mean, based on what you're analyzing here, I think this chain reaction is happening. Belief, tawhid, taslim, and tawakkul.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Very nice. Now, if Ömer Faruk, you don't have anything else, we have this tough statement, I wonder, and I want to ask both of you what you understand from this.
Hocam?
Yes.
Which statement?
Yeah, I'm just about to read it. If
okay.
If Ömer Faruk doesn't have something more to say.
I was just gonna say, in Islam, when we give up our ana, we have to give up 1/40 of our property as well. And when we understand this, ana very well, and in and give away what we have provided you. It's not going to be difficult for us to give charity as well, because we will accept that it's not our property, right? We are just we hypothetically own those. It's not our property, but we are actually giving away the property of Allah to whoever He, and acting upon it, becoming a Muslim and obeying His laws, even physically, is going to be easy for us as well. And if we internalize this ana, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Also, nice comments that I see from our listeners. Thanks to them. So one says, based on what lastly we discussed, there's a matching with the sixth word of Ustad Nursi. It refers to the ayah where it says, verily God has purchased from believers their persons and their property, that paradise might be theirs. So it's kind of all belongings are purchased from us, meaning from the verse. And also there's a question. Ustad talks about the fitra, nature of other creatures know Allah. If they don't own any, how do they know about any absolute attribute? Is it just the existence or also some attributes at some extent? Very nice question, I think, right? Since we say that our understanding of Allah is attached to Ene in a way, so how come other created beings without Ene know Allah, you know? This is the question, if I understand correctly.
Maybe Amar Farooq can go first on that one.
Koordinajam, inshallah, after you.
I think, isn't it the case that the angels, each angel knows one or two names, and they are aware of them in a way that, for example, a baby is aware of its mother. A baby is not self-aware. It doesn't have Anna, but it's aware. You know, it's aware of its mother. And the angel is also aware of a name or two names, or, you know. So each thing, you know, a tree or a cat or a bridge or a lake or a star, these are represented by angels, and the angels who bear these beings, each of them knows one or two names, almost, I would say, intuitively, and without any self-awareness as such. What I mean is like that conscious self-awareness that comes with having freedom of choice. Animals are not self-aware in that sense. Or they are aware of themselves, but they are not aware that they are aware. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. It comes to the point of comprehensive understanding of Allah's attributes, right? This is given especially to humankind.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something in humans which allows them to reflect all of the names, right, including Allah's ikhtiyar, you know, his freedom.
Right. Amazing. Yeah. I think that's the point. Only human being can understand to this extent.
I think so. Yeah.
Other beings are aware, as you say, to some extent, but not as comprehensive.
Yeah, you've put it in a nutshell. Yeah, very economically and eloquently. Yeah, I ramble a lot, grasping for words.
Sometimes, you know, economy just falls down. Anyhow, I think I'm coming to the question that I'm so excited to ask you. We don't have much time. Just let me get into this question. This one, you know, here it is said that the last sentence, the Ene, you know, definition of Ene in a different sense and in a detailed sense from different aspects. It's a conscious strength from the thick rope of the human being, a fine thread from the raiment of the essence of humanity. It's an elif from the book of the character of mankind, and it has two faces. I don't think we will have time to talk on two faces, but at least I want to discuss on this brilliant definition. I think it has lots to say to us. I want to ask you, what is the difference here? Human being, humanity, and mankind. I think here there are intervened definitions, like 3 definitions, and they all borrow from each other, and they all have something to share with each other, seems like, if I'm not wrong. But I want really to ask you, how do you understand these 3 different arguments in this single sentence, including human being, humanity, and mankind?
I think that you've already unpacked this and understood something from it, and you seem to be excited about it. So I'm going to turn it back on you.
No.
I'm going to propose that you explain this, because I have some idea about what a thick rope means, but what you're doing, you're trying to tease out the meanings of these words are different, aren't they, in the Turkish?
Yeah,
clearly.
they're different. Actually, I would say maybe translation fails here. It's not
Yes,
easy
this
to
is why.
translate these things to another language. I think this is very unique in
What
itself.
happened to the translation? Because usually we have the translation side by side, don't we? Or do
This
we?
is for maybe special readings, but for seminar, I think we are not providing this. It's
All
just
right, I see. Maybe I'm thinking of something else then.
right.
What's the word? Do we have the original somewhere? The thick rope of the human being. Is that bashar or insan?
This is insan, the first one, human being.
Insan, right?
Yeah.
And then
The second one is beşer, humanity is beşer.
right?
And the third one, mankind is Adem, Ademiyet.
Then this completely changes everything. The translation doesn't give us that, really.
Yeah, so let me ask you maybe with these meanings. So the first human being is insan, and the humanity is
But
beşer.
pardon hocam, he also says, not just insan, but vücudu insan.
Yes, vücudu insan.
So it's a conscious strand from the thick rope of the human being, right?
Vücudu insan.
Vücudu
Is it like
insan.
body of a human being? Vücudu insan?
Is it body or is it existence?
Existence, I think. Yeah, existence. Vücudu insan.
Okay. Because it can mean body as well, I know that, but and a fine thread from the raiment of the essence of, is this bashar, humanity?
Beşer and hulle beşer, right? It's kind of the dress of beşer,
Yeah.
raiment of
Yeah.
essence of humanity.
So
And also it's the elif from the book of Ademiyet. Ademiyet.
Adamiyat as mankind is fine, but humanity, bashariyat or bashar, I wouldn't have said that's humanity. I don't know. We're limited in English, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is hard to say, but I think it says a lot, I'm not unpacked with that, but what I'm excited, I feel like the first one, it's kind of, I considered the language, when we look at it, we have pronouns such as I, we, them. So I feel like the first sentence is related with I or myself. The second sentence is related with we, us.
Right.
Kind of, the first one is how I perceive myself. The second one is how I perceive us. When I say we are doing this. I'm proud of us. So as a team, as a country, as a society. So I think the second one is related with society or what I say I.
These are the three lines, the three clauses here, right? It's a conscious strand from the thick rope of the human being. You're seeing that as I, yeah?
Yes, this one.
And then a fine thread from the raiment of the essence of humanity.
This is with us, what I perceive us.
And then the character of mankind.
This is them. I'm third pronouns, whatever they are. This is what I understand. Because it's a book, it's kind of history. It's how I perceive them, others, in a way.
I never thought of this before, ever. I never thought of trying to unpack the different meanings because looking at the English, there's no nuance there in the English.
This is, actually, I'm just trying to connect this with, we said that this is history of mankind, right? Ene is history of mankind. I think the third sentence is mentioning this. It's kind of giving us a history of mankind. It's the book of character of mankind.
Right.
So we see war criminals, or we see, for us, we see. When we look at the history, we can see that it's so. Ene is the elif from the book of the character of mankind. Right. But my understanding is very limited. But I feel the excitement, to maybe give us three different ways of understanding Ene based on the pronoun.
Yeah. Three different positions, yeah, or three different orientations, maybe.
Right.
Or manifestations of Ana.
Because also I see that we have problem defining we, right? For example, we are saying we Muslims, but we don't agree with all Muslims, right? Yeah. Or we say non-believers, believers. So when we make definition of us, it's also related with Ene. This is what I'm saying. It's like, from Surah Hud, we know the son of, Allah says that the son of Nuh was not part of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So then Prophet Nuh cannot say that his son was from us. He can't define his son from them. So
it's also interesting that the son of Nuh alayhi salam took himself to the mountain, and mountain traditionally is a kind of emblem of nafs, It's solid and it's enduring. And Nuh, his son, thought that, he could withstand the encroachment of the flood by himself, by self-reliance, by relying on his own nafs. And the mountain there is a kind of symbolizing his how can you see this solidified nafs.
yeah, the first sentence, maybe the first part of positioning Ene.
Do you mean that fits in with
the first line? Maybe Nuh's son in this example just positions himself in a way that he just prefers to climb on the mountain. And
right?
at this point, maybe the prophet questions like he was from us, but this questioning of us also, solves the riddle of Ene in terms of the second one, second sentence.
Right. I'm still not that clear on these three, and I think maybe next
But
week.
anyhow, I don't want to take much time from my side, but I think this lines are very important to unpack.
Then I think maybe next week you should unpack them at the beginning for us.
We can start, if you find it important. We can ask also audience what they think about it, and also Ömer Faruk, if you want to say something on this.
Yes. What does Omar think?
That is, three things, staying a strand from a thick rope, I think, and a fine thread from the raiment of the essence, and an elif from the book, and I realize here, like, it's something very small compared to other things, a strand from a thick rope. And it's, and I understand from here that, we talked about, the harm that we receive when we misuse, and it's very great, but in its essence, it's something very small. As we talked, it's like a hypothetical. It cannot create, it cannot do anything. It's all from Allah, but it's just hypothetical. It's so small in its essence. It's like a strand from a thick rope. It's like an elif from the huge book. It's very small in its essence, but the destruction it does, it's very huge. Also, the benefits we get from that, it's huge, but in its essence, it's very small. That's what I understand from this.
Yeah. That's what I understood. I didn't. What Harun is talking about there is for me quite new, and it seems quite something that he was excited about it. So I'm sure that it has something there that I haven't yet understood. So it would be interesting if you could unpack it next week.
Yeah, it's easy to go around some concept, but just to reasonalize or just put it in a strong words, it's not as easy. There are some comments maybe before closing. Yeah, although about the previous topics, about the question, like not all creators perceive or understand in the same way. There's an excerpt from Risale-i Nur. I think since it is to everyone, I suggest you can just open the chat and you can read it. It's and also it's coming in the next page when we compare the opposites. Yeah, but I think let me go to the next page. Yeah, it's two sides of Ene. I think we can discuss these two faces of Ene in the next week, because we are just on time. And if you don't have any more questions, maybe we can finish by a nice prayer from Ömer Faruk.
Thank you. I pray to Allah that He makes us understand the value and importance of Ene and use it correctly, inshallah, and open the treasures in the heavens and open the treasures of the names and attributes of Allah and know Him as He wants us to know, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We have no knowledge, no power, except that what Allah has given us. والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you